Hi everybody, Gary Williams here for Toolbarn.com's Barn Banter, and today we're going to do something just a little bit different. First, you may have noticed we're not in the studio today, we're actually in my driveway, and there's a reason for that, because I started a project about 4.5 years ago. I finished it, by the way, but I started it, and you know, I kind of like the way it came out, but I'll also tell you that I made several mistakes along the way, and several of those involved the tools that I had to work with. Didn't really have really good tools, and I learned something from that. So, what I'd like to do today is encourage you to take on a project maybe that you haven't done before and take a look at your supply of tools and upgrade those. You don't have to buy the very best tools out there, but I'm going to encourage you to buy the best tools that you can afford. So I want you to get involved in some woodworking projects, and I want you to get involved in looking at better tools. We've got a great selection, by the way, at Toolbarn.com. You knew that. But we're going to show you some things that went well and that didn't go so well in construction of a farmhouse kitchen table. Believe me, there were a lot of both, so stick with us. This is what the rustic farmhouse kitchen table came out looking like after it was all said and done. You know, it's a pretty good sized table. It's about 8 feet long and about 39 inches wide, standard table height. As you can see, there's a bench that goes with it over there. And they both involved a lot of the same kinds of cuts. And the cuts that that I had to make for the most part were just pretty much regular type things, you know, just straight cuts on 2x4s or on the top boards or any of those kinds of things. But there were some joints that were just a little bit different, and those are the ones that gave me trouble. Those are the ones that involved having to cut notches in 2x4s. So for example, in these cross support pieces, I cut notches in the upright 2x4 legs so that the 2x4 cross supports would fit in there, and screwed them in there and glued them in there, and it made for a really, really sturdy table. You could probably park a truck on this thing and it's not going to go anywhere. It's heavy, but very, very sturdy. The kids can do, grandkids can do just about anything they want and not damage it, and they have. It's been colored on, painted on, beat on, all kinds of things on here, and it's holding up really well. Although it does look pretty rustic, and the more they bang on it, the more rustic it looks. So, but that's the whole point of the project, is to put something in the living room or the dining room that we could all sit down and eat dinner at during special occasions, or that the kids can sit there. It's become a real community gathering type of thing for our family. So it was a good project, although a little bit complicated. Those joints, those were tricky. There are several of those cuts that you have to make, and one of the first mistakes that I made in trying to do that was I dragged out this old table saw, which belonged to my father. This saw is probably about as old as I am. I won't tell you how old that is, but it's more than 6 decades. And at one time it worked great, but I tried to use this saw to cut those notches in the 2x4s with little or no luck, and here's why. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. What's happened over the years is that parts have loosened up, the belt's stretched out, the pulleys, everything has just kind of gotten out of adjustment and kind of fallen apart on this thing. I struggled with it to make all the cuts I needed to make on this first table, but it was a real chore. And part of the problem that I saw, or that I had, was that as I would be sawing, when it would saw at all, the blade would sink into the table. It wouldn't maintain its adjustment. So I'd be trying to cut these notches and basically have an angled cut in the board, and that didn't work. So I wound up recutting and recutting and recutting. It was a pain. I have since learned that there are a lot better ways to do it. I'll show you just a little bit now. This is obviously a circular saw, and I bought this, but you know, I really haven't used this to cut those notches, although they say that you can do that with these things, and I think people do, and that's okay. But better yet is a compound miter saw. And I'll tell you, this, I was able to get one of these. Actually, I got one for a gift. Not exactly this model. It changed the world, or the way that I had to cut those notches in the 2x4s completely. These things changed the job. And I'll tell you what, the compound miter I got did not cost a fortune. It wasn't, you know, dirt cheap. It wasn't a discount model, but it was a good one. I'd love to have this one. I'm hoping that we forget and leave this at my house for the rest of the year. But the point is with this good tool, I could have probably taken a day off of the construction time of that table. So this is what I'll use to make those notches in future tables. And I have made several tables since the first one. This is the kind of tool that I use. It goes much, much, much better. So once you've got all the lumber cut, and there is a lot of lumber to cut for this table, it's not complicated, but you just got to make some appropriate and correct cuts. You know, the old thing, measure twice, cut once. Well, that really applies here. But once you do that, you've got to start putting all that stuff together. And you know, you use wood screws and glue, of course. I got to tell you, this is one place I really screwed up. I thought pretty much that at the time, now this was several years ago when I was young, 4 years maybe, I don't know. Anyway, I thought at the time that pretty much all cordless drills were created equal. I had, over the course of time, purchased these 2 drills. Now, neither of these is real old. Neither of them has been used a lot because neither of them will last long enough in terms of battery power to last very long. What they are is cheap drills or expensive paperweights, because I don't use them. Now, what's kind of funny about that is my wife always gives me a bad time about not throwing or giving things away, that I hang on to stuff too much. And oh, hold on a second. I got to take this call. Hello. Yeah, no, I'm just telling them about how you always say I keep things for too long. Yes, I'm using the old phone. I can't hear you. You know, you're breaking up. Okay, I'll get a new phone. All right, thanks, goodbye. I don't know what our problem is with this. You know, this is also a nice paperweight, but anyway, so paperweight drills, no good, but I still have them. I'll get rid of them someday. How about these things? DeWalt 20 volt drill drivers. I'll tell you what, best tools I have ever had, best drills I've ever had. And the nice thing about it is that the batteries are interchangeable. And in assembling that table, if I would have had these, which I didn't, but if I would have, that process would have gone so much more smoothly. Would have gone faster, it would have gone better. I wish I'd have had these. I've got them now, so. Anyway, again, a modest upgrade in the quality of tools would have made a huge difference in the construction of this table. In an effort to make these things look just a little bit better, like I said, got cheap wood, a lot of imperfections in the wood in terms of warping, bowing, all those kinds of things. I used a bar clamp across the top of these things and kind of pulled them together just a little bit to eliminate some of the gaps between the boards caused by the imperfections in the wood. And after I pulled them together, got underneath the table and put screws from the bottom supports on through the top of these things just to kind of pull them all down. It's still not a perfectly seamless tabletop, but it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to look rustic, and I think it does. But that helped clean it up just a little bit. When I got the thing assembled, I tried to sand that tabletop and the bench top, I pulled the bench too, with this sheet sander. You know, not very effective. Didn't really work very well, at least to level out some of the wood spots and take off some of the stuff. Just not a good sander for that purpose. However, this was a lot better. I bought a belt sander. I like these things. You got to be careful you don't put them on lock and set them down on the table because we'll run away from you. But you can take this thing. I took this thing to the top of the table and it did a great job of smoothing things out. And then I took the sheet sander and smoothed it all out from there. So it was a much better way to do things, a much faster way, and it really did a much better job. Again, not a boatload of money invested in this, but enough of an investment that it made my life a lot simpler. On that table that I finished 4 or 5 years ago, and I've done about 4 since then, I've used it on every one of those. So, well worth the money and not a huge amount of money. I guess to wrap this thing up, this table has really become kind of a centerpiece for our family, and I never thought that it would be that. I thought it would be a nice, functional, sturdy table, but I didn't know that it would become kind of a little family center thing for us, where the kids could play, we could all eat dinner, play cards, whatever. I'm going to encourage you once more. Go online, find plans for a project you like, and if it says rustic in the title, then that, in my opinion, is a good move, because rustic is, you know, not very hard to do or compared to highly finished types of plans. But look for plans. These came from AnnaWhite.com. She's got a bunch of them there. Look for decent tools online. You know where to look for those. Toolbarn.com, right? You knew that. I shouldn't even have to say that by now, right? But get decent tools. Get the best you can afford, not the best money can buy, the best you can afford. And you'll be glad you did that too. So a project like this can fit a lot of different purposes. It's scalable. You can make different size tables. You can make the bench like I'm sitting on, basically the same thing as a table, just a smaller version. If you get involved in this kind of thing, you'll find a great deal of satisfaction out of it, and it won't cost you a bunch of money. It's just a fun thing to do and a great way to spend a weekend. So I'm going to encourage you along those lines. If you have any questions, let us know. Put them down in the comment box on the video here, and we'll try to respond to those as we can. Meantime, thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed what you saw, and I hope you'll join us again. So get some plans, get some tools, and get to work.